start from the very beginning.
Is that chair away by any chance?
Nope, not in the way at all.
Right over.
Got you on center seat.
In your home office, you have to pan and do the memorabilia on the walls also. Why don't we just like start from the beginning and how you first became involved with Marist? You know, starting way back when. What was your first involvement with Marist College?
Well, it is on the video I made with Brother Paul Ambrose. He and I were trustees at the St. Francis Hospital School of Nursing. And one afternoon, there were 4 other prisons on, all women. And they were yakking at one of our meetings. And it got around 5 o'clock, and I turned to Brother Paul and I said to him, you know, I said, these ladies are cutting into my cocktail hour. I think we ought to get out of here. So he said, I'll go with you. So I said, come on, I'll buy you a drink. Of course, he wouldn't go to any public place, so he said, come on over to my quarters at Marist, and I'll buy you a drink. So I said, okay. So I went over, and of course, just having a discussion, he said, our brothers are thinking very seriously of taking in some local students, maybe 20 a year or something like that, and to help give them an education. And he said, I'm scared to death of bringing in lay people like that and what the consequence will be and whether we can actually handle them. So he said, would you help me set up an advisory board to help out? And I said, sure. I think it was 1956. So I got a group of local men together and some men that he knew and all. We formed a little advisory group, and he made me first chairman of that group to help Brother Paul Ambrose. And that's how I got started on it. And the following year, I think it was 1957, they took in their first lay students.
And then following that,
And just growing and growing and growing.
just growing and growing. So you've been on the board then.
And so I stayed on. At first, only the brothers were on the board of trustees. They had no lay people. And I think, in memory, say 1958 or 59 or sometime like that, they brought in Brother Linus Foy to be president. And Brother Paul Ambrose left to go to Rome, be one of their superior generals. And so Linus was there, and like I say, the number of lay students just kept growing and growing and growing. So I would say about 1967 or 68, sometime like that, the brothers deeded the whole place over to Marist College as a corporation, which was an educational corporation. Deeded off all the land that was on the south side of Waterworks Road first, and then a year or two later, everything was on the north side of Waterworks Road. And I think it was in 1967 that they made the first lay trustees. And Harold Spencer was the general manager and vice president of Western Printing. And I think he was the first lay trustee appointed. And then there were a few others. And in 1969, I was elected as a trustee of the college. And I've been a trustee ever since.
So over that whole span. How have you seen Marist change over that span of time? I mean, besides going from the Marist Brothers School to a lay college, how have you seen it change in other ways?
Well, of course, there have been so many changes. The big question arose when, for the advisory board, before there was a lay board of trustees, whether or not they should admit women to attend the college, as an example. And our advisory board was split. About half of them wanted to remain a man's college, and the other half wanted to let the girls in. And what really changed their thinking, the brothers' thinking, in allowing it, was they decided to have an evening school because they found out that in IBM alone there were something like 4,000 or 5,000 employees down there who had 2 years of junior college who may want to go back and get their degree. So they thought they opened up an evening school to help them. And that proved to be very successful, their evening school. And women were allowed in the evening school. So they said, well, we'll allow the evening school, why not in the day school? So they decided to change and allow young girls to enter college along with men. And I guess now, majority are women.
Come full circle.
The times have changed. The John Schroeder, who Brother Paul Ambrose has mentioned many times, had been down at Oakwood School as a teacher, and he took over as dean of the evening division and did an excellent job, and that really grew. And at first it grew faster than the day college, but of course now it's all amalgamated into one. And so that was one interesting thing that happened in the years. The physical plan, I was always a great believer that the better the physical plan is, the more attractive it is, the more students will be attracted to college. And Marist has no big endowment fund. They got to rely on the number of students and the tuition generated in order to financially survive. And it's proven to be successful. The fact that it is an attractive place and they are attending and they do like it. And it isn't just local students. There are, as you know, now 2,100 beds up there, I think, or something like that. And they want to add about another 500.
For the new dorm, so we're attracting a lot. So you've really, and being at the McCann Foundation, and I know there's a whole list of things that McCann has helped contribute, the Gartland Commons named for you, the McCann Center. Why this special relationship between the McCann Foundation and Marist College? Is it just that it's a community, organization that sees a need at Marist, or is there any history behind that?
No, it's just the fact our McCann trustees, we first built the McCann Golf Course in the city of Poughkeepsie. We rebuilt St. Mary's Church. The CYO, Catholic Youth Organization, had a swim program under Jack Kennedy, who at that time was head of Wire Corporation, and then he was also mayor of the city of Poughkeepsie. And he had been an assistant Olympic swimming coach, and he was gung-ho about a program, and he had about 2,500 kids in the swim program. So he approached me about the possibility of McCann building or contributing to build a swimming pool indoors that would be able to accommodate them, because these kids were getting up and going down to YM like 3 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning, like that. And it was very hard on the parents. And it was only the fact that so many people wanted to swim and everything in the Y, just couldn't accommodate everybody. And the YW pool was also restricted in its usage only on a time basis. So there was no other school, no other place they could. Later on, the Poughkeepsie Middle School built one, but that wasn't available except for those students or those children who live in the city of Poughkeepsie. So those who live in Wappingers and Hopewell Junction, Hyde Park, like that, had no program. So we were sort of interested in doing that for the community here and having opened up for the benefit of the community. But the place, or the question was, where do we put it? So we investigated a lot of places. So Marist College seemed to be the most likely place that we knew would remain in existence for a long time. And so we approached them with the idea of building a year-round swimming pool under their jurisdiction that would be open to the community. and the community could use it. And Marist was agreeable to it. And then Marist also had been wanting to build a new gym, so they said, well, let's build a field house along with the swimming pool. So we combined the two ideas and everything and built the McCann Center. And I suppose that's not really how we got interested in Marist, but that was one of the big things we did. How we really got interested in Marist was when Jim McCann was alive, and I used to say to him, Jim, what would you like me to do with your money if when God takes you to your great reward? And I said, my other trustees are looking for me to be the bird dog up here and try to find out. So he said, oh, when that time comes, you're going to have to decide all that, not me. I said, come on, Jim, it would be something. Well, he said, the only real thing I would like to see is all those kids across the street, because he lived across from Lourdes High School.
Okay.
So he said, I'd like to see those kids make sure they get a college education. So he died at the end of February in 1969. So I went to the principal of the high school, and I said, in your senior class graduating, how many are going to graduate, and how many are going to go to college that you know of, and how many are eligible to go to college, and like that. So I've forgotten the exact number now, but it was over 200. And I think they were all, but 20 were going to go to college. Yeah, I'd made arrangements and everything. So I said, find out from the other 20 why they're not going to go to college. And I think it was like 10 or 12 of that number had taken SATs, but they couldn't afford it, and they couldn't get assistance. So I went to Marist College, and I said, graduating from Lourdes this year are 20 students down there that would like to go to college, and academically could go to college, but they don't have the means. So we'll give you a money for scholarship program, and you manage it and you handle it. It doesn't have to be restricted to Lourdes. It can be anybody in the Dutchess County area if you want it. But I said, just look it over and see if the kids are eligible to go, and if so, give them an opportunity. So the number that had been proposed for that freshman class that year had already been filled up. But I said, all right, they would take them, as long as the kids applied before May 1, I think it was. So I told that to the principal over there, and he had these kids apply, and I think every one of them got a scholarship for their tuition and everything, because they were living at home, and they were boarding students, and they went up there. There were 4 or 5 that figured they never could afford to go, so never took the SATs. So I made arrangements at Marist, and I told these kids, you go to community college for a year, take liberal arts program, and if you are successful and pass all your courses, Marist will take you as a transfer student. And they did that. The beauty of this whole program was, of the first 48 young people who had a McCann scholarship, everyone graduated from Marist. I don't know what the figure is now, because we give them $50,000 a year and they pick anybody they want.
I have a McCann scholarship right now, so
you
I'm
do?
grateful for that. So that's good, yeah. And that,
And oddly enough, there's like an esprit de corps set up by those students who are available of it and call themselves the McCann Scholars and like that, which I thought was quite interesting. That's really how I got involved with Marist, and in McCann getting involved in Marist and giving him something. And then we just have multiplied on that as we see Marist grow. We realize how important it is for the community here, and so we've been giving them more money, but all the money we've given them is predicated upon making the campus more attractive, more and more attractive, and doing things that will benefit them in attracting future students. Today, in today's economy and with the population, the way it has been going, most all colleges figure that there's going to be a lack of students sometime around this time from now, like into 1996 or 97. The Marist has been growing every year anyway. And I think a lot of it has to do with our program, what we've done, particularly making all the athletic fields and all the areas around there, like on the north side, where it cost about $1.6 million to purchase the land and make those athletic fields.
Yeah.
But there's a girls softball diamond, a men's softball diamond, and 2 complete intramural football fields, plus 2 outdoor basketball courts, a volleyball court, and then on the south end of the campus, since Mary's going to go into Division I baseball, a new baseball diamond is built. We fixed up the football practice field so it can also be used for soccer, rugby, and lacrosse. So, and in the McCann Center, not only the swim program, but then they were able to go into Division I basketball, and there's racquetball courts. So I think the facilities up there are very good to attract students. Then the college, through its own funds and dormitory authority funds, have built the little Thomas Center, the Dyson Center, the townhouses, the apartment houses, and the Marion Hall, and now we're contemplating building a residence or model residence for about 500 more beds.
I've heard rumors of that, and that'll be great. Yeah.
Well, it's in the works. I was chair of the board, I think, in 1972 and 1973. And since that time, I've been chairman of the Building and Ground Committee of the college. We meet every single Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock for about an hour and a half, and we go over all the needs and all the progress in relation to the buildings and the grounds and everything. So I'm very interested in the buildings and the grounds.
It's just, with the renovation of Donnelly and all that.
Oh, renovations of Donnelly, yeah. That's right.
That's incredible. That's a beautiful building. Just, excited.
And we renovated Champagne Hall, we renovated Leo and Shan, and then there's all the ground and the site work in connecting the north end of the campus and the south end of the campus, trying to make it all one.
Beautiful, because I bring tours around campus, and people are impressed by just the physical plant of it, besides being on the Hudson, which is nice. They are impressed by all the buildings. Related to the McCann Foundation and the community, how do you see Marist's role in the community, for the past 10 years, or the past time that you've seen it? How have you seen Marist's role in the community change?
Well, let's look at our educational institutions like Vassar College. Now, Vassar College, of course, is a much older college. It started just as a female college, and attracted students from all over the United States. In fact, it became like a national, international type of a college. And for a long time, local girls were not encouraged to go to Vassar College. They didn't like commuter students. The only local girls who went become boarding students at Vassar, because they didn't want commuter type. Of course, they've changed that. In modern society, they almost had to, and they do have a lot of local girls. And McCann has given them money too to help their what they call the commuter student center they have out there, and we give them money for scholarships also for local students, male and female. Community college arose right after the war, and has grown tremendously to meet a need for technical education of students. And they have various programs up there to help them become employed and to get out into the job market, like teach them to some surveyors and criminal justice for policemen and nursing and different things like that. But Marist has a liberal arts college, the same as Vassar. Started right from scratch, we'll say, and had to grow up by its own bootstraps, which it has done. Initially, in just handling commuter students, which are local students, before they have resident students, proved to be a void among the middle class people and among the even the poor class, where they had a struggle to get an education, and they did. They had the Upward Bound program and different things like that to encourage the poor, economically poor students to attend college. And I think that's proven very successful. Then as they start putting dormitories and residents, so they're growing that much more by attracting them out of the area, students in Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York City, Long Island, different places like that. And this year, it's even spread farther away from that. There's all sections of New England and sections of the Midwest and some in the South and like that are now coming to Marist College as its reputation grows. So they're bringing those students in, and of course they spend a lot of money locally here, so it should help the economic elements of the community. Besides that, Dennis Murray, who's been president now for, well, I think it's going on his 12th year, has always encouraged all his staff to get involved in community affairs. So they serve on the board of Civic Center and the Area Fund and the Boy Scouts and different nonprofit organizations like that, which are community oriented. And he's encouraged that. Plus the fact he's also encouraged the use of the facilities up there by local people. They use the theater, they use the McCann Center, they use the fields up there for a lot of community affairs. So Marist has become an integral part of the community, probably a lot more so than other places like Vassar or Bard, because Bard is like a compound all by itself. It's isolated, and Vassar has encouraged its international reputation, although they've tried recently to encourage a lot of local students to go there, but it's, from an economic point of view, they probably are students from families that have more of God's goods on earth here than others.
Relating to Dr. Murray, how has Marist changed, besides the areas that you mentioned, since he's come on board as president? How have you seen Marist change?
Well, it's continued to grow, and I think Dr. Murray has encouraged all the beautification of the campus, the use of the campus. He's encouraged all the participation in intercollegiate athletics, intercollegiate affairs. He himself has gotten out, not only just in the community here, but all over the United States, giving seminars and lectures and everything like that. He continues to teach in public affairs, and his doctorate is in public affairs. So he's made sure that everybody in the community, as much as possible, has continued to participate actively in community affairs. As an example, the Institute of Public Opinion and things like that. He's encouraged those, which of course enhances Marist College's reputation. And the reputation is spreading. I would say in the 11 years he's been here, it's grown from a localized institution into a well, semi-national institution. It isn't as well known as a lot of other big colleges or universities like Georgetown or Michigan or things like that. But at the same time, its reputation as a small liberal arts college has grown tremendously. And one of the things that he was able to bring about is the relationship with IBM. And I think in that in of itself has been a great accomplishment, because the joint study with IBM has made Marist College probably one of the leading, if not the leading, small liberal arts college in the United States in relation to computer science and in relation to what the students can obtain from association with IBM.
What do you see as Marist's greatest asset right now and its greatest liability, at this time?
I think one great asset that Marist has is his board of trustees. There are 33 people on the board. They have 4 regular meetings a year, and then every month the executive committee meets and invites other members of the board. And a majority, well, there's 11 on the executive committee, I think, and the majority of all the trustees attend those monthly meetings and really work at it. So you take a board like that is very active and participating in everything is a great asset for the college. The other elements that Dr. Murray has done is by spreading the word of Marist College throughout the whole area. So I think in his regime up there, it's been very, very helpful, and it's gotten a lot better known. And the other things that I mentioned earlier about IBM and like that, are a little part of that. What was the second part of your question?
A liability, Marist, a problem or liability.
What is a liability? Well, probably the biggest liability in every college like that is its debt structure, and financial debt structure. And Marist has that well in hand, I think. It's the assumptions that had to be made in order to finance everything has been very on the conservative side. And the business vice president for Marist College, Tony Campili, has been there a long, long time, and he knows all the ins and outs of the college financially. And he's able to keep a good handle on it so that expenditures and debt structure doesn't get out of hand. And the way he has structured everything from a debt point of view has been very, very good. So I don't think that while it's a potential liability, at this point I don't think it's any real liability. I think one of the great things they did in their expansion when they went to Marist East, the old Western printing plant, and realizing the money that had to be spent in order to bring it up to code for classrooms and like that they said, well, we're only here on a temporary basis. Our best thing is to take that money and put it into a new classroom building, which is the Dyson Center. So with the gift from the Dyson family and the balance of money was necessary to build that by restructuring the whole debt service and moving everybody back on the west side of the Route 9 for on the campus there, has been an excellent service for the students and an excellent thing, which all is easily within the debt structure that the Vice President for Business Administration has done up there.
What would be your most vivid memory of Marist? If one thing could stand out, what would be the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I suppose there are really two things.
Okay.
for myself personally.
Mhm.
One was they gave me an honorary degree, which I appreciate very much, and thought that great. The second thing is when they named the apartment complex up here and the athletic fields as the Gartland Commons, in honor of my wife and myself. And I said at the time, I was glad it was in honor of, not in memory of.
That's right.
I suppose there's a third thing too, really was very touching. About 3 or 4 years ago, the McCann scholars had a luncheon one day, and they presented me with a green jacket. Knowing I like to play golf and everything,
Mhm.
they had a copy made of the green jacket given when you win the Masters golf tournament. So they gave me one designed by Jack Nicklaus, and I just thought that was a very touching thing for those students to do.
Thank you. Sure. Let's see. What do you see as the greatest challenge now for the future? The greatest challenge faced by Marist for the years to come, moving into the 1990s and the year 2000?
Well, that, I think basically, you might also consider the overcoming of the possible liability, and that is the reimbursement for the students by the state of New York. Because of the budget constraints of the state, they had to cut the funding money in half, and also the money that they allow students to borrow in order to complete their education. So without that money available, the question is whether the enrollment will decrease and drop down. If it does, since Marist relies on the income from the students alone and not from any endowment fund, they're going to have to watch out very, very carefully. So that is a potential liability, but at the same time, for the future, it's something that has to be watched very carefully so that the student population can stay up to what it should be for Marist to properly survive. Because you take a lot of colleges, like I just reading recently, Syracuse University has had a big decrease in the enrollment up there, mainly caused by the lack of financial aid that they can give to students and the decrease in the funding money. You know what the funding money is?
Yeah, it's institutional by the state. So, okay, that would be, seems to be one of the greatest things coming with the New York State budget. Let's see. Anything else you'd like to mention? I've covered my base questions here. We seem to have covered a lot of areas. Anything else you'd like to mention that comes to mind?
Well, there was a brother up there who was in the library who was collecting together a lot of the memorabilia of the college and a lot of the early days of the brothers up there, and that should all be fairly well documented. From the time that it was turned over to a lay board and a lay college on it, he also was collecting material, but I don't know whether anybody's ever coordinated it or not into a history. Do you know anything about that?
I think there's a file or two in the library director's office of things, photographs of brothers and the Marist campus as it's changed, and some information, but it's never been put together into an actual archive. It's never been organized or compiled any type of history. There's also like student newspapers that have been saved, but they're falling to pieces from what I understand. They need to be microfilmed. And just seems to be information out there. A lot of the professors who were students or brothers from the early days seem to have some information, but no one's done the effort of gathering that all together and organizing it. So hopefully that will happen. There'll be some type of archivist or some type of program set up by the board or the president to bring all this information together, so Marist can have a written history with the Marist archives on the premises. Some of the faculty, I guess, have expressed an interest in that, but it just needs to come together to get coordinated. So hopefully we'll add these videotapes to the collection. Hopefully something will be done with them. They won't just sit and collect dust, and the next generation will say, oh, maybe we should do the same thing. Hopefully it'll come together in some type of project or some type of effort. So the president seemed to express an interest in it when some of our class members went there and spoke to him. He said he would like to see an archivist commission to take care of the Marist history and bring all these things together and do official work for it. So hopefully that'll happen in the next few years.
Well, Adrian, we used to call him Brother Adrian, but then he left the whatever, and Adrian had that collection up there, and I know he had it in the library, because I gave him a lot of stuff to add to it at various times. I hope it is. I hope that they do have somebody that can make a nice narrative history of it and bring all that together. Yeah.
It seems to be there, but just no one has gotten around it, and there's nobody saving things right now. I mean, I guess because we see like the circles and the newspapers and the things that go around, we save them, then we throw them out. There's no one who's saying, well, save this, or this is the central location where Marist should save the minutes, or Marist should save the graduation programs, or all these things that you're not thinking about now, but 50 years from now they're going to say, gee, I wish we had saved that. So I'm sure that'll come up. As the 50th anniversary gets closer, I assume there'll be some sort of celebration in 1996. So it'll be good to have something more than the brief history that's in the catalog. Marist was founded by, and the Marist, but it's something beyond that where you can actually remember, and people can speak of anecdotes and just I remember when.
You live on campus or you live at home?
I live at home, so it's a 20-minute commute. But I mean, just in the 3 years that we've been there, it's changed. When I came in, they just started the renovation of Donnelly, and I remember they didn't close the building, so I saw it, the old and now. It's just incredible the way they renovated that. The Dyson Center didn't exist.
What is this? What? Must be $7 or $8 million spent on the Donnelly building.
But
Old Thomas getting a basement there.
You live locally here?
Yes, I live in Marlboro,
Oh.
right across the river. So,
You live home and?
yes, I live at home. About 20-25-minute commute.
the Dyson Center going
You're in your
on.
third year also?
Yes, I am.
What do you girls intend to do when you finish?
I'm going to go on to graduate school and hopefully get a teaching job at a high school or middle school anywhere in the area, Dutchess County. So I'd like to go right into that.
Yeah, I want to go on and be a history teacher. So.
Good. Well, good luck to you. I certainly hope both of you can succeed.
We hope so. Planning today in our class, we were talking about careers and resumes.
My wife and I have 8 children, so we watch each one of them. Whereas now we got 12 grandchildren we're watching.
Oh, wow.
And my oldest grandson is going to enter college next year. So, and he's around looking at colleges all over the place.
So yeah, it's tough, but hopefully by the time we graduate, the economy will be a little bit, more on the upswing, and people will be looking. The schools will be able to hire new teachers. Their budget will have been a little improved. So hopefully that'll be good by the time.
So you see it right in the center up there, the honorary degree?
Yeah, I was just noticing that.
It's wonderful. You've got to get the
I
camera.
went to Georgetown to college,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to Fordham Law School. Then I got a graduate law degree from St. John's Law School. Then I got the honorary degree from Marist.
You're going to pan everything.
Yeah.
Picture with Barbara Walters.
That's Barbara Walters.
When she
yes.
received the Lowell Thomas Award.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was.
I sat next to her that day, and somebody signed her picture.
Meeting there. Bishop before. Okay. Picture one of the Marist brothers. Let's see.
Well, that's Linus Foy,
Okay.
president of it,
President.
and when he was a brother. And of course, those brothers don't take permanent vows until they get well on in years. They can if they want to. So, any time they just go to their provincial and say, well, I want to leave, I want to be excused from my vows and like that, and they generally get it to them and they go. So after he put 25 years in as a Marist brother, guess he decided that he'd like to leave, and which he did do. And in fact, got married and had a couple children, and then he stayed on as a layperson for a couple of years after he did that as President Marist, and then decided to leave, and then Dennis Murray came in.
Almost the second lay president, Dennis Murray. The first, but the second, because last one went in.
Yeah.
We were speaking to Brother Bellinger yesterday, Joe Bellinger, and he was saying how one of the things he sees as interesting is the president after Dr. Murray, the selection of, when Dr. Murray decides to leave. How is Marist going to go depending on who's selected to be the next president?
Well, it's interesting. We had a search committee for Dr. Murray, and under affirmative action, they had to advertise. And my memory is correct, they had like 144 or something like that put in for it. So I was on the search committee, I think there were 8 of us. And I said to the man who was chairman, who was Cliff Wilson at that time, who was president of Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation. And I said, I'm not going to read any 144 resumes and try to, I don't know what I'm doing. I said, I think we better get a professional to help us, in which we did do. And he narrowed it down to around 10. And then there were 2 or 3 members of the faculty at Bureau of Administration who put in for it. So I said, well, we'll interview them also. And then he came back and said, I got a list of about 15 people who I think would make a good president of Marist College, but they're not on the list and apply. One of that number was Dennis Murray. So Cliff Wilson wrote a letter to each one of them, and if they were interested to send a resume, if or not, forget about it. So Dennis Murray originally sent in and said he was not interested in it. So after about a week or 10 days, all of a sudden he wrote a second letter in saying that he changed his mind, he was interested in it, and he would like to be considered, and he sent his resume. So we had a vote, a secret vote, on all the ones, because we're going to narrow it down to interview 5 people. And we had at that time maybe a list of 30 with that other group. So of the 8 people, I was the only one that didn't vote to interview Dennis Murray. So and my reasoning behind it was, in reading his resume, he went out on the West Coast at Whittier College. And I said, he just wants a free trip to the East Coast so he can see New York and see everything like that. And I don't think we should just pay to have him come here and make a visit. Because originally he said he wasn't interested. And I said, I think he only did this to get a trip. But I was outvoted 7-1. And they invited him here. And the day they invited him to interview him, I had to be in New York City on a law case that our firm was handling. So I couldn't meet with Dennis Murray. And when I was coming home, I was reading in the paper where Whittier College had just picked a new president. And it wasn't Dennis Murray. So when I came home, I called Cliff Wilson and I said, Whittier College, where he was, picked a new president. And I said, if this guy Murray was such a hot shot, why didn't I pick him? So Cliff was, he has a good question. So the search committee sent a couple men out there to California to find out why. And of course, after we found out, it was very obvious. Whittier College is a Quaker college, and you had to be a Quaker to be president. So here was an Irish Catholic man, see who didn't qualify out there. So I suppose he figured, well, I'll look around and see what other place I can go to. So he brought him back for a second interview then, where I met him and with him. And now since he come here, I think he's been a great president. I think he's done a wonderful job for Marist College. And I'm happy now that they did select him.
More than a free trip.
I told him that story many times. We joke about it, how I was against him initially. and now came around, one of his probably best supporters up
Sure.
there.
Paradox. Didn't come out just for a free show. It's good. It'll be interesting to see what happens after.
Well, true. We've had, as an executive vice president, he's had 3 actually very good ones. Each of them make a good candidate. One is went to over New Haven and Quinnipiac College or
Okay,
something like that, you know?
yeah.
And then the other was over at Sacred Heart College in Bridgeport. And there's Mark Sullivan up here, who's executive vice president now. So there won't be a lack of candidates. Be interesting to see who.
Will come out. But we're not planning for that. He's not planning to leave yet.
No.
Work isn't done yet.
I think if he ever does leave, though, I don't think he'll go to another college. Because most men in his position who have been successful in a college like this is recruited constantly, but mostly by other colleges that are financial difficulties or something like that. Expect him to come in and, you know, pull a rabbit out of the hat for them. So I think if he ever does leave, and which he may leave after a while, it will be to go into business rather than going to another college. And at that time, we'll have to see who. And chances are we'll pick somebody who was familiar with Marist and just add on to everything that Marist has done out there.
Continue to still adhere.
Finished?
No, keep
So-
whatever you want to finish off and we're finished.
Someone who can still adhere to the mission statement and the mission of Marist, but still bring it financially capable, which he seems to have done fairly well, extremely well. So yeah, he wouldn't be able to go to another college and top what he's done here. So makes sense. Go into private business, perhaps. Well, okay, I've completed my questions. Is there anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, I want to thank you for your time. This is
very happy.
invaluable and we'll put
Say
it
hello to
in
your
Marist.
father for me,
I
and
will.
always like you know very much. And as you know, we've done a few things down at Mount Carmel Church.
Done
and,
many things.